Hey, Shalom family. I wanted to do just a quick follow-up to touch on a couple of things. I posted a written post on my Facebook page a couple of days ago. In the post, I was addressing and giving a warning and an encouragement to people who are in a place where they are examining their faith and their beliefs, especially when it comes to, specifically when it comes to their belief in the Messiah or disbelief in the Messiah. And a lot of people are rejecting the Messiah and rejecting Yahusha or Yeshua as the Messiah, and discarding the whole New Testament. I'm going to use the terms Old Testament and New Testament for the sake of this video, just for simplicity sake. So a lot of people are going through that. So my post was to encourage and warn and encourage those who are in that place to be careful of the counsel that you are taking, to be careful to not allow those who have a spirit of mockery and scornfulness to become your teachers, and to be careful that as you are exploring that, and if you decide to change your beliefs, to not become one who is a mocker and who is scoffing, at these things. And then also to encourage you to seek counsel that is going to give you a full, to make sure that you're not being deceived by these sound bites, these cherry-picked verses pulled out, these short memes that are being posted with one verse being pitted against another verse, something in the Old Testament pitted against something in the New Testament, and making it seem, it sounds like, it's contradictory because of the way that it's pulled together, but it's deceitful because it's not being honest to the context of the two different verses that are being pulled together, because you're dealing with something that was written thousands of years apart from different people who are talking about different things. But just because the same word appears in both, people pull it together and make it seem like something that's not honest, that's not dealing with the text critically and honestly with integrity. But lots of people is causing people to question and think, because it's a snapshot and it sounds good, and it's causing people to think something that is not true. And these little things are drawing people to come to an unstable place in their faith. And it was also a warning for those people who are doing that, for you to not become someone who is doing these things, and to not fall prey to those who are doing these things. And to say that those who are doing these things, the scripture tells us there will be judgment for that, to cause someone to stumble from the place that they're in based on these deceptive means, right? Now, let me clarify a couple of things, because I've seen some posts in relationship to this. Let me clarify a couple of things. One, I never said that anything about your relationship with the Most High. I never said anything about going to hell. Never said anything about any of those topics. So I said exactly what I said in my post. So and also want to clarify that seeking understanding does not make you a mocker. Seeking clarification, seeking being unsure about the faith, and exploring it and challenging it, and bringing correction to it if you do feel like it's incorrect, or any of those type of things, does not make you a mocker. So there's nothing wrong with challenging something, exploring something, questioning something, and bringing correction to something. There's nothing wrong with any of those things. It does not make you a mocker. What makes you a mocker? What is mockery? Mockery is having a spirit that it comes from a place of you're making fun of something, you're deriding it, you become a scoffer, you're scornful, you're coming from a place of contempt. You're coming from a place of deep down, it's kind of a place of pride. It's kind of like you're looking down on something else, and you're poking fun of it. It's kind of like, comes from a place of either anger or hurt, woundedness, or sometimes it's coming from a place of ignorance, not knowing. If you don't understand something, and you don't know the full picture of something, you may make fun of it. That's what children do. They don't understand why somebody looks like that, so they make fun of them, not understanding their disability or situation, so they mock it and make fun of it because out of ignorance, right? But then sometimes people do it out of hurt and woundedness and anger because of they feel like they've been lied to, and so once you come to a different understanding, now you're looking back on it scornfully, like, you have a disdain, and you start to position yourself in that type of spirit. The problem is when you position yourself as a leader and a teacher, and you're coming out of that type of spirit, you're going to, number one, you're going to attract other people who are wounded and hurt and angry, and so now you're going to draw in those people, and those like spirits are going to connect, and now you're going to be teaching them based off of that. So the belief is not going to be based off of solid information and solid facts, but you're drawing based off of that familiar spirit of being hurt and relating to, the lies that you've been told, and relating to, either the ignorance of it. Well, I never understood that. That never did make sense, and all these different things. You're relating on that, and not simply on the facts. So it's a spiritual thing that is happening. So questioning and challenging and correcting and examining, all those things we all do. I sure have done it. I sure do it constantly. You understand what I'm saying? So there's nothing wrong with that, but being a mocker is a different thing. So I just want to make sure that is clear, that nobody is saying that there's anything wrong with examining your faith. Of course, that's how we all got to where we are now. We examine our faith, but it's a whole nother thing to position yourself, to become a mocker, and to get into this puffed up place of pride, where you're now coming down on something else, and not being edifying, especially I mean, that's for anybody, but especially if you are positioning yourself to be a leader or a teacher, or that in that sorts, but that goes for any of us that are calling on the Most High. I don't, when it comes to any of the Abrahamic faiths whatsoever, meaning Christianity, Judaism, Islam, anybody who's claiming to call on the Most High Yah, I don't see where we should be making a mockery. So we are going to be bringing correction. We're going to be challenging things. We're going to be disagreeing, all those things. But to sit in a place of judgment and mockery and scornfulness, there's no place for it. There's no need for it. There's no reason for it. It's not productive, and it's not bringing us to a place where the remnant amongst all these different doctrines and stuff will hear the voice of the Most High only through humility. As we humble ourselves and allow the Spirit to teach us, and know that we're continuing to grow and to gain understanding, the Most High through our humility can teach us. The problem will be coming to this place of becoming scornful against something. We think that we have understanding. We think that we have full knowledge, and we put ourselves in a place where now the ego can get involved, pride can get involved, and you're no longer in a place where you can hear. You're no longer in a place where you can see correctly. Now you have to defend what you have been mocking. You have to defend it. You have to stand 10 toes down, because now you're making a mockery of this other thing, and you're not likely. You make yourself less likely to be able to hear truth when it comes, right? So all I could do is admonish that you don't put yourself in that place, and that you don't take counsel from people that are in that place, and that you stay prayerful, as I shared in my post, that you stay prayerful and seeking the Most High. Stay humble, stay prayerful, keep seeking, never stop seeking. You know what I mean? So these are things that I've gone through examining these things in these aspects of my faith, and I continue. Anything that I believe, I still re-examine it regularly. You know what I'm saying? And constantly ask the Most High to keep my eyes open and to show me things, right? So I completely understand that place of exploration, right? The way that I came into understanding that we were supposed to be keeping Torah was a long process for me, but it was also there was a point in time where, I'll give you an example. For a period of time, Paul, the Apostle Paul, was on my hit list. Okay, he was on my hit list. I wasn't understanding why I was reading things that seemed to contradict the other scriptures, that seemed to contradict each other. It didn't make a lot of sense, and I come across some writings that had a very compelling and convincing argument about Paul being a false apostle. Very compelling. It was very compelling, and I was pretty much convinced at that point. So, and when I was going through these things, and I'm not saying that people shouldn't, you shouldn't talk to people or whatever, but when I was exploring these things, I talked to very few people. I didn't talk to anyone who I knew that, in my exploration, I might share something with them and they run off and go astray, in going to some other, discarding things. I was very careful of who I shared things with, while I was in this place of uncertainty. I wouldn't share it with somebody else who wasn't also, who wasn't either stable enough to handle my questions, or was in a certain place. So or already in the place of exploration that I was in, and we would kind of explore together. So I examined. I got a sneeze coming. I was examining that, so I came across those writings, and I was like, man, this is and the reason I was looking for those, I came across it, was because the contradictions were messing with me, and I just couldn't get no clarity. So what the Most High had showed me to do, I was like, all right, I put aside all of Paul's writings for a period of time. I reread the whole New Testament, all of the letters and the Gospels and the letters and the writings and things. I reread all of that, excluding Paul's letters, right? I reread all of that, excluding Paul's letters. And when I read everything that the Messiah had to say, everything that the other apostles had to say, I was like, man, this all kind of is congruent. Like, nothing was contradictory between Messiah and the rest of the apostles and what they were saying, what I read outside of Paul's letters. So I was like, wow, this all is congruent, and it seems to be in alignment with the rest of, I'm going to say, the Old Testament scriptures, the Torah and the prophets. Like, I didn't see anything that was out of alignment at that point in time. So I was like, wow, this Paul dude might be an issue. I was like, I don't know about this Paul dude, But I did not at that point in time start posting memes about Paul and posting all these things too. So when you put something out online, you don't know who's seeing it, who's reading it, and who's going to run. It's a sense of responsibility, that we have to be careful and have, to not become stumbling blocks to other people, because we may get understanding later on, but we've in the process of us getting understanding have led, dropped seeds that have led dozens or hundreds of other people to go astray. You know what I'm saying? So we have to be careful. We have to be mindful. We have to keep Torah about caring for each other, right? We have to be careful. So I went through this time period where I was examining whether or not, I was like, what's up with this Paul dude? Why his writing's so confusing? And, it wasn't until some time. So for that point in time, I just excluded those letters from my studies until I was sure that all made sense. It all was saying the same thing about the Torah, the law of the Most High, that we should be upholding it. We should be keeping it. We should be walking in it, and then, over time, I started examining each one of the letters, and I started looking at it to get understanding on what is being said here. And the thing that we have to understand about, especially the New Testament writings, is that these are individual letters. These are written by different people. In the case of Paul, he wrote a lot of them, but he's writing them to different groups dealing with different things. And these are letters. These are not teachings. They contain things that are teaching, but they're not written with the intent of, let me write you a teaching. Let me write you some laws to keep. It was letters, right? That we are privy to and have, at our disposal. So in examining it, we have to look at it as such. What is, I could say something. If I'm writing a letter to my mother, right? Versus I'm writing a letter to my best friend, I may say something similar, but mean something completely different when I'm talking to my mother versus when I'm talking to my best friend, even though I'm using similar words. It's a different conversation. So you have to be, diligent in your study and examining what's going on. So when people are just taking random things, okay, well, this over here said, love your enemies, and this over here say don't love your enemies, and you're pitting two. You have to examine the context of what's going on. You have to examine the who's talking, who are they talking to, what was the intentions, what was the context. You have to go into all these different things, and that is work that I know the majority of people are not doing. Most people are not doing these things, and you're allowing these people to deceive you and fool you by just cherry picking these things. And it's just how we've been taught to handle the scriptures throughout time, through being in the church. We pick it up like it's a quote book, and we can just pull out anything and just use it. However, when there's a context to something, you got to look at the context. Then you got to look at the interpretation. Is this the word that the interpreters used? Is that really the word that they should have chosen, coming from whether it's the Hebrew or the Greek or the Aramaic or whatever? Is it interpreted correctly, or did somebody read their biases into the text, right? So you have to examine these things. So what I'm saying to you is have you examined these things in this way before you discard it? You understand? Or, have you gone through this process? Have you found a teacher who can take you through this process? Keep your spirit and your ears and your eyes open, and don't so quickly discard your faith by something that seems a certain way, that sounds or appears a certain way, but has not been examined. Because the closer you get to something, things look different. Something could look one way at a distance, but when you examine it more closely, it'll be something completely different, right? So have you gone through that process? Have you been thorough in that process and allowed your spirit to not get attached to any teacher, to not let somebody stroke your ego, to not let the familiarity and the camaraderie, pull you in, to not, it feels good sometimes just to have somebody who believes or understands your struggle and your doubts. Listen, the enemy seeks to kill, steal, and destroy. He's a prowling lion trying to, deceive. You have to be vigilant, family. You have to be vigilant, because there is much significance in what you believe and what you hold to and what you discard. And I won't go too much into other things, but so I just want to encourage you, family, to, stay close to the Most High. Never close your ears. Never close your heart. Continue to seek, and to close out that process. After I started, to go back to Paul, I want to make sure I didn't leave that open-ended. After I studied and examined, and it took me some time to go through each one of the letters and the books to figure out what was he really trying to say, what is he really meaning, to get the gist of what was being said and what was being meant, and to see the continuity of it with the other scriptures, right? So, but that took a process. And the Most High took me through it the way that I needed to go through it. Like I said, I discarded it for a moment and until I could get understanding and evaluate it and examine it and get understanding on it, right? So some of you guys are taking counsel from people who have never gone through the process of getting understanding. Like, thoroughly understand what it says and then discard it. You understand what I'm saying? Thoroughly understand what it says. I understand exactly what he was trying to say, and I don't believe it. I ain't buying it. You know, then you can discard it. That's like, you know, you judge me based off of what you think I said and not based off of what I actually said. That's inaccurate. You know, take the time to understand what I'm actually saying to you. And then if you don't like what I said, what I actually said, then cool. But if you walk away not understanding what you thought I said and I didn't actually say that, then there's not truth in that. You're missing out. You know, we're both missing out for no reason. You know, so we don't want to do that process. And so that's what I wanted to share, just to kind of follow up. I think I said everything I wanted to say. Let me say this too. I don't remember if I said it already. But it was a brother who on my Facebook, a dear brother on my Facebook, who posted something on his page dealing with memes when it comes to Yahusha, where people will do memes about Jesus, right? But people who believe in the Messiah will make these memes. Well, people who don't believe in him make these memes too. Both make these memes. And it's hot in here, y'all. People will make these memes and not make the distinction about. So it'll have to do with because people believe that the name Jesus is not accurate, and you know the color of the Jesus that has been presented in Christianity is not accurate. And because of in Christianity it's taught that Jesus came to do away with the law, because those perceptions are inaccurate, people will talk in a way where they're like bashing Jesus, right? But not making the distinction, as the brother commented in his comments, not being clear and making the distinction. One second, y'all. Not making the distinction that who is being talked about. So people will say that Jesus is not true, he's not real, just because those facts are not real. So they'll discard the whole thing, not understanding when a person picks up the scriptures and they pick up the New Testament in English, it's going to say Jesus, right? So even whether we call him Yahusha, you know, Yeshua, whatever the case may be, we're still dealing with the same person. Now, what man has said about him may differ. Man may have a picture of him that's not accurate. Man may have him saying things that he didn't say. Man may have him a name that's not his name. But that doesn't mean that what the actual scriptures in the New Testament, that doesn't make this a completely different person. It's still the same person. It's man's perception that is different. So when somebody comes to me talking to me about Jesus and I'm saying Yahusha, we're talking about the same person if we're talking about the person who was revealed in the New Testament scriptures. We're talking about the same person. So your understanding and my understanding of him may be different, but it doesn't change. There's not multiple, you know, there's the New Testament. That the writings that we have are the writings that we have, and we're talking about the person that's revealed in that writings. So you have to be careful to not be like, you know, bashing Jesus and saying all these things about Jesus is this and not that and this, you know, without making a distinction of saying that, you know, these facts about this person is inaccurate. You know, if you try to discard the whole person as being false, you know, based on these things, you're making an error. Okay. I hope that was clear. I'm a little distracted. Got a lot of stuff going on outside around me right now. But I just wanted to touch on that as well. So I appreciate the brother bringing that out and saying that clearly, because I see those memes all the time. Those I mostly see them by people who are bashing him altogether, but sometimes people who follow him are falling into that bandwagon not understanding that now you're speaking against you're speaking against the Messiah that you believe in, unknowingly. So if that's not clear, if anything in this video is not clear, my inbox is always wide open. My comments are wide open. Contact me in any way, shape, or form, and I will respond to you in whatever the case may be, whatever's necessary. So I just wanted to share those few things and just encourage you that we are in critical times, and it's important that we stand firm in what we believe and what we know, and that we stay in a place of humility, stay in a place of our ears and our eyes and our hearts being open to the Spirit of the Most High, and that we grow in our spiritual discernment, grow in our ability to hear His voice, and grow, in our understanding, of what He intends and desires and has to say to us, right? So that's all for the moment. Shalom, shalom.